Do you guys remember Sleeping Beauty?
And die!
It is rarely anyone's favorite Disney classic, I guess. Why? It's so good. It's my favorite because, you know, I have taste. No. So yeah, despite its time, it was released in '59. I think Disney is much more, I mean, Sleeping Beauty is so progressive and quite feminist in its portrayal of women and how it kind of plays with gender roles. So if we look at Maleficent, the curse scene is obviously a very iconic scene, but it's also a great scene from a characterization point of view.
Quite a glittering assemblage, King Stephen. Royalty, nobility, the gentry, and... how quaint. Even the rabble.
I think there was a really nice bit of vulnerability when she kind of shakes when...
You weren't wanted.
Not what?
It's unexpected. She thought there would be veiled civility the whole way through.
Oh dear, what an awkward situation.
Stalker!
So I think that's an interesting reflection of sort of etiquette at that time.
What is a weekend?
But also that she expects us to be treated a certain way. I think if we think about this particular world, there's the head of the monarch and the head of, I guess, religion, or their equivalent of religion. At least she would be one of the monarchs of the religious sect. There's like a deep agency to why she's angry. She's an important person, but because of her way of life, her characteristic, maybe her choices as a woman, she feels alienated from society and not given the due respect that she deserves.
You are my last hope. Circle far and wide. Search for a maid of 16 with hair of sunshine gold and lips red as the rose.
She's using the child to make a political statement. The most interesting thing is even the side character, like the Queen.
And you're not offended, Your Excellency?
He doesn't ask.
Why, no, Your Majesty. And to show I bear no ill will, I too shall bestow it.
When she places the curse, you can see that King Stephen doesn't really react.
And die!
And whereas the Queen, his reaction is to...
Is that creature?
Stand back, you fool!
A very interesting reflection of what the gender norms are at that time. But what makes this film really, I think, progressive is that it actually shows a spectrum of women. Because you have the Queen, sort of the epitome of what is expected of women at that time, especially of a well-bred woman.
A lady.
And then you have, sort of more middle of the road, you have the three fairies. And you think about them. Yes, so they do still have that instinctive love for a child, which I think is a really key theme in this film. But they are Korean people. From the fact that obviously their magic is excellent, so their name is and then the gifts that they gave to her is kind of linked to maybe their power or their domain. But I think also the fact, and I really identify with this, is that they're not great homekeepers without their magic. And I think that's an interesting statement that maybe it's saying if women had the magic to take care of domestic affairs, they could then go on to have other things, like careers, options, essentially. Which I think is a very interesting statement to make in 1959. I mean, it's an interesting statement to make now.
I think often in the service of stories, sadly these days, particularly women, can just be put in a box of just maybe one or maybe two, if you're lucky, two things.
I'd like to turn her into a fat old hot toad. It can only do good, dear, to bring joy and happiness. Well, that would make me happy. Reason with Maleficent? Well, she can't be all bad. She can't be all bad. You know, sometimes I don't think she's really very happy.
You're fraternizing with the enemy.
Did you hear that, my pet?
You know, sometimes I don't think she's really very happy.
Oh, baby, what you done to me? What you done to me? You make me feel so good inside, good inside. So alive. You make me feel. You make me feel. You make me feel like a natural woman. You make me feel. You make me feel. You make me feel like a natural woman.
3 peasant women raising a foundling child.
You mean we are?
It's the only thing she can't understand and won't expect.
It's sci-fi.
But who'll wash?
We'll all pitch in.
Sci-fi.
And cook?
Oh, we'll all pitch in.
Sci-fi.
They could have magicked a scarecrow into a man, maybe. Like, they didn't have to confine to any, like, that kind of norm. That's great. Then you have Maleficent. Really doesn't care for this. Like, she has no empathy, sympathy for this child. I think it's a product of its time that she is the character that gets punished because she makes choices that deviates from what a woman is expected to make. In the new Maleficent, how they revision it is that she becomes a redeemed character because she develops this love for
Sweet.
Just a minute. Just a minute.
Into a dragon.
Just a fucking minute.
she just doesn't have the due respect that she deserves. That's why she's angry.
But I know something of a woman and a man's profession.
Maybe this is where the Turn the Dragon lady came from.
You thirsty?
The one wizard.
He did this to me so he would be king.
It's not as interesting, to be honest.
She shall prick her finger on the spindle of a spinning wheel.
I like you begging. Do it again.
The range of female characters is much more limited.
I'll turn her into a flower. A flower can't prick its finger.
Until Maleficent sends her frost.
Yes.
In a lot of sense.
This is all your fault!
She always ruins your nicest flowers.
This one scene has more fantasy than anything that the remake did do. Very unnatural already. But really, I think in terms of visual representation that she belongs to a different almost dimension is when
Is that creature?
and the spears come in like that, which chromes this vector, and then she kind of forms a V vector. Incidentally, her shape.
She was like, yeah, like not as good as my vag.
She's on a different plane of existence almost, and they can't punish her. CGI porn. The magic is rarely something directly inflicted from one person to another. There are the curses and the gift wrap, but they're very long game.
All these years, Cradle!
I've always wanted to use that spell.
the magic in a certain way is quite feminine, right? It's not a brute force thing a lot of the time. Even the way that the curses resolve are more sort of clever de-escalation rather than head-on forces.
And die. Not in death, but just in sleep.
Interesting use of fantasy to reflect gender roles. What did Phillip do in this battle, really? Nothing. Even the sword and shield that he was using were gifted by the fairies.
Thou sword of truth, fly swift and sure.
All he did was fling the sword after they had charmed it. The role of the women, Lady Macbeth sort of way, exerting their influence behind the scenes. And Maleficent really challenged that because she ruled as herself on the throne.
Now shall you deal with me, O Prince, and all the powers of hell!
Turns into the dragon and physically battles Phillip.
Into a dragon.
Just a fucking minute.
In the last decade, there's very few that have not one, but two, but three.
4 very complex characters who are women in the 1959 film. It's a three-dimensional look at women's roles at the time and what they ought to be or could be.
We can't go there. We can, and we must.